we're gonna roll with it. So my name is Adina Sullivan, and I'm an EdTech coordinator for a K-12 district near San Diego, San Marcos Unified. We're in the northern part of San Diego County, for those of you who are familiar with the area. And we have been over quite a long time, but especially over the last 5 years in particular, been trying to deal with quite a few revolutions in the district. A lot of significant change where it's like, you know what, we just need to get down to it. So how do we do that, and how do we make that happen? So for today, these slides, if you want to get to those, are here, bit.ly/revolution slides, and that's how you can get a hold of me. On Twitter, Google+, and my education email. And this is, we're going to talk about some of the changes we've gone through and how we try to implement that, but also looking at what does it actually mean to be able to make these changes, these revolutionary things we want to do. How do we get them going? How do we maintain them, sustain them without killing ourselves and the people we're trying to do this for and with and about? So that's what this is all about. Not that we have all the answers, but maybe together we can work on this. So we want to make change. There are things that we want to work on in our families, in our schools, in our districts, in our larger communities. We want to see these significant changes happen, and there's a lot of conversations here at EduCon about those changes, whether it's about the way we work with one another in our bias, our prejudices, or how we deal with different cultures and students, all kinds of things like that, whether it's one of the huge projects that I started my job with. Let me go back a little bit. I worked for about 10 years teaching adults in professional development in a corporate setting as well as in adult literacy, and then taught for 13 years in the elementary classroom before moving to an EdTech teacher on special assignment position. And I did that in April of 2011. And almost immediately, there was, hey, we have this really cool opportunity. Qualcomm is going to give us some money. They want us to help start a one-to-one program. And I'm very fortunate to work in a district where our leadership said, that's fantastic, we want to make that happen. The board, our superintendent, we want to make this happen. How do we make it happen? And we didn't really know how to make it happen. So we went through a huge process for trying to make this happen. I'll share a little more about that. We're now 5 years down the road of that and are taking on new challenges like grading. Changing the grading system. Now it's painful at elementary. And it's really painful in middle school. And then you take it to high school. And now you've got pitchforks and torches, and it's all just scary. But this is a change that we're trying to take on. Looking at how we deal with one another and how we view one another culturally and economically and all of that. It's another big change we're about to go through. Before we go any further, what's your revolution? What is it that you are trying to change or help support change in your own area, whether it's your school, your district, your community? So if you come at your tables or general areas, kind of share where are you coming from and what is it that you're trying to get behind or help support or want to start making happen?
I think, I don't know, I think I want to center more collaborative effort between all the teachers. We have such our district is amazing and our schools. Like I just love the staff, meaning like our staff.
I like how that's like nice in general. I think that
teachers who are like
the district dynamic try
to progress with the
shifting the power
too. So I think like having those tools so really welcome having sessions.
District
like that available to the teachers. I think that would just make them more engaged, more eager to learn. those things, because seeking it out on their own.
I was going to say the same
I want to
thing.
give it to them so that they don't have to seek it out.
I teach at a very, very, very large private school in New York. And many of the faculty members there, and just the culture there, is entrenched for a very long time. And we've recently, when I've had one-to-one, and I'm on the committee on St. Francis Prep.
Yeah.
So that change, not that slide, but the previous, that change that we've implemented in the last 3 years since we went on that one-to-one has been met not just with resistance, but with outward. And that collaborative nature, we've tried to do PDs and workshops and all sorts of things. And it is now, I mean, it's almost all outdoor in the schools, amongst the faculty, you know?
Because once you pick a side, you're sticking with your side. It's my team.
Couple days.
And it's like some of these other teachers who like
one little
tell me that I've been doing this the wrong way. That's not what I'm trying to do. But
So my brother will text me
Yeah.
if he lives in that speech. I'll be like, oh, look,
but
it's
yes,
sunny
but
outside. Oh, look, it's not.
to try to just
Yeah.
get
Seriously,
that
during a look
culture
at
to
the
shift
show.
back over to what we're supposed to be doing. And that's my revolution.
So in New York, I teach in New York City, and
It's gonna be cold.
we have this observation mandate with like a DAN system of the Danielson framework. And anyway, but so one of the as a role of assistant principal, my job is to go in and like do instructional observation. But
last weekend you
I bring a teacher with me, and they help draft feedback.
don't tell me that story.
So when I first started to roll that out,
Get that story.
so the change is taking away that power structure and like and building up like a culture of trust rather than like admin. It doesn't have to be like that. There's no reason for it to be like that. It helps that
Sounds like spring.
this is my first year as a principal. I taught for 19 years and I helped open the school. I was there for
It's
7
supposed
years
to get
before
to
it
be
came to
60
this.
years.
So that kind of helps give me some credibility as to like who are you to go and change this system type thing.
But it can cause some other.
Dad lived in
I'm
Phoenix.
not gonna say it's great.
Six
I
months.
didn't have lunch with them.
And you could always tell, you know,
They're like needed to be stressed. I
58
felt like
degrees,
I needed
and
them to
everybody,
be able to
all
like.
locals are
All right.
Yes,
You know,
we have a moment.
I'm wearing
Yeah,
a t-shirt, you know,
But we're also have like have this
East
like
Coast,
level of
Northern.
trust. The change is how do you get to that?
we can
like,
tell.
The anonymous suggestion box, like there's no reason to be anonymous. How do you get to that point? Like where it's okay to safe space, create a safe space for teachers to innovate.
Yeah, model you in, big model. Yeah. Unfortunately, my room was surrounded.
I being an
I-
administrator in high school,
Yeah.
and that's it. And that's like you took a teacher
Yeah.
where
That's what I did in college. I like when I was in college, I was shopping.
my other
really, and now I
coworker that's here. We have signed a war pact, like I heard about it from her. She heard about it actually from her advisor, who is definitely like.
we was in the
Army.
we were taking this out.
All right, we're back to revolution.
My advisor.
We did talk
The
about
teacher's here, she's
that.
watching.
Yeah.
But
We did talk about that.
I think it's just like
San Diego and that was
great to have.
Where's the adults? Oh, where's it?
Actually, Oceanside.
I would love it. I would love to have like.
Oh, okay, right next door.
Right,
Yeah.
teach in San Marcos
Yeah,
now.
no, I was
Live down by state.
yeah, but I moved back here when I was in high school.
Like sitting next to me, and
That
like
was shocking.
to be able to look and be
Like,
like.
there's still some carryover in the voice.
They are,
Yeah,
I'm not.
Because students ask me all the time, how'd you end up here? I just joke and say my parents
Right.
told me the beaches were
Obviously,
nicer.
that's examples. You're like.
Because, you know,
Well, I read
to ride our bikes to
that,
the beach.
maybe, but so easy to talk to in that way, and that's great, and they're so into.
And I wonder why I still
color
do.
and
So we have a lot of different things happening, whether you're trying to deal with, attitudes. Sometimes that's a massive revolution in itself. How do you adjust an attitude? How do you deal with resistance to change? Because, just because someone said this is what we're doing doesn't mean everyone's gonna go, okay, let's go. That's not the way it works out. How do we make this all happen? Because we know you don't just say, okay, we have this tough solution and here you go. It's magic. It's short term. It's easy. We can do this. I found this image and thought this worked for me perfectly, because it's kind of like, we have a classic thing. We have what we've always done, which is frequently the issue. We have ideas that are, I think it came from, maybe it was you, Daniel, said entrenched, right? This is the way it's worked for me. We have that comes from various places. We have that comes from students who, when we want to make a change, they go, whoa, 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 I was really good at the other game. You can't change the game now. That's not fair. We have teachers that say, whoa, 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 but this is the way I learned and I taught and what I'm good at, and this is my style. This is, right? We have that from, sometimes we'll have that from administrators. We'll say, hey, I know this is what we play the they game, they're saying, but here's what we're going to do over here. We'll have that from parents who say, this is not what school is supposed to look like. This is not how it's supposed to happen. What are you doing? I don't understand the math anymore. I don't, whatever it is, we get it from various parts. We have our comfort place. We know what feels comfortable for us. And in education, I don't know if you've noticed, but things change a lot. There are massive pendulum switches. There are massive things that happen that seem to happen on a political level that really you don't understand how that could possibly be determined. Clearly, none of them have ever set foot on a current school campus. There are lots of things that happen that we have to roll with, and people get really resistant to it and get really hesitant to change. They have their comfort place. This is the way it was. And the other reason I love this is because when I took driver's ed in high school, back when we used to have driver's ed in high school in the mid-'80s, this is what the cars look like in our simulators and in the videos. But oh, we all look at like, what is that? So as kids, we're saying, we don't know what that is. And the teachers are like, no, this is the way it used to be. This was the car I learned to drive in. And we kind of have that same situation happen where we get really comfortable in whatever we have. And we don't see or know how to deal with the fact that things need to change and switch and why when we're already comfortable. So if you do a Google search for change models, everybody's got one. Everybody's got a version of one. And I looked up some of the images for them, and they are all over the board. From let's make it really simple to let's make it 95 steps. It gets to be a little ridiculous. And then you go to sustaining change, and the numbers drop a little bit. So it's one thing to say, yes, this is how you do it. It's another one to go, here's how you actually keep it happening. So what we did, and we said, okay, we're going to talk to some experts. And it was part of our deal really with the situation we were in is Qualcomm supported us in, we thought one thing was going to happen, and then actually a different thing happened. We thought, okay, they want to help us go one-to-one. They weren't paying for devices, they weren't paying for access, they weren't paying for PT, they weren't paying for subs. All they were paying for was the cost to talk to the experts. So you consult the experts. Only the experts don't always have it right. There are issues. They can say one thing, but they And that's going to take you to here. And so it's in 3 sections. So we've got the first part, which are the first section we talked about. So what is the change needed and who will impact it? For all of these areas, build the case, leadership sub-boards and model, people owning the change, involving stakeholders, what are the realistic, practical things you can do to make that happen? It's one thing to say, yeah, do that. It's another to talk about how you do that. Do you hold discussions at your board meeting? Do you have discussions with your bilingual parent councils? Do you hold discussions with your union representatives before you discuss it with teachers? Do you have a discussion at various school sites before you have a discussion in a larger arena? What are the practical steps that we can take to make these kinds of changes happen? So if you'll kind of talk together at your table groups and then fill in some ideas for part 1, what are the practical things we can do versus the nice to say little title? Because we have to get real about it. To make it happen, we have to get to what's really practical. So at your table groups, take a few minutes. What can we do?
Can you come back a bit, please?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Not mean, but
No, so that it comes up in the next section, which is about managing, how do you manage doubt and concern?
Yeah.
Because you have to address it.
well, you kind of just said it, like, what do you have to do first to make that happen?
And that's part of it, is what you do first, but then there's still gonna be that other piece, and we are gonna get to that.
My own time, really, like where my kids go,
Uh-huh.
my own flush and blood kids go, very suburban, there's no change. Whenever anything happens, my kid that has this in the future. Okay, and that's not the only change, but they're, like these workshops, they don't do anything.
Sure.
But you go into like where I teach, and very urban school, and it's like change every day. Like they determine with my kids, because they're Black and Hispanic, and the kids out in suburbia never get experimented on.
We're trying to adopt.
If there's a big political, like, so when we say change and revolution, that's why I asked all these district, it's allowing this to happen. Because if you try to do this in the neighborhood where I live, you would.
We're really diverse, and then we chose schools to be involved. So for example, there's representation at each of the high schools and middle schools, but elementary, until 11 elementary schools. We couldn't put cards with teams at all 11 schools to start. So we very carefully chose one school that is basically low income second language, Title I.
The same district, you have one that's like that, and then another one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. One that is a very mixed community, and one that is a little more primarily a little more affluent. But all 3 had already done work at their sites with some of the things they need to do with the attitudes with folks and some of that initial work. And so it was like, no, we need to, this is not, we didn't want to do experiment on whatever kids. It was, no, we need to make this that we're doing this across the board.
Those conversations in my district kind of.
People are paying for an education, and it's like, that's not how you learn, iPad is not how you learn. So I didn't learn like that, so that's not how you learn, and paying the money, or what you know.
I mean, the parents actually, before, they haven't shown much resistance, only when they only show resistance or voicing a plan or something when there's inconsistency in the pedagogy. When I'm using iPads, that's one way, and another teacher, I'm expecting my students to use it, and then 3 of their other teachers aren't using it at all. That's when the conversation with parents will say, well, how can you as a school push and promote this progressive technological agenda, but yet different forms of transformation. Yeah, and
I think you have to thrive in both though, as a kid, you teach them a life skill.
Absolutely, and that's what we,
Some college classes will be.
on the tech side of things, can say is like, there's so many ways of doing
There's
things.
that one class
The only way you
type
can
in
do
one
things
end and write the next like same class. It's like, yeah, my school has laptop.
I have.
Which is where you can chat.
So
Translate.
we like, we have
I don't know what it all is.
and we have the
I
cards
think
and
it's
stuff,
all
most
about
classes,
that.
just because of the testing that
So I don't believe.
So we have to.
I'm not.
we guys have like 1-to-1, but the students
We
don't
need
get
to go
to
through this thing.
and they, well, in one class they're using Google Docs, and another class they won't, and they're like, well, I submitted it, oh, it's on my drive, but it's not my folder, like, so it's like all of those things too, like, I have a folder for my class. No, I shared it with you, I'm like, but it's supposed to be in the folder because that was the directions, it's not so much, like, yeah, you shared it with me, the work that you have, but
Okay, you believe
the
that?
point of this was that I needed to follow the directions.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Where, and you know,
I'll do too, and I'll tell
don't
the
touch
teachers
Google
who are,
Docs, like they
you know,
don't
transforming their learning through
So it's
transforming
just like that
practice. And
difference.
I'll come back to the table, we'll meet you in 3 months and,
Yeah.
we'll.
So, I mean,
Sit down.
it's not designed, so like, if there were a small group of teachers that are using it effectively,
You
and you're highlighting that somehow, how do you go about highlighting when it
We've
works?
been traditionally high performing
well,
school, our kids
we
get
try. We
There's no
have,
need for us to change.
We try to blog
I can show you
Okay.
the data that
That
says
is-
we do. that we've stagnated,
So it's
and
a
that
startup.
we're,
Yeah,
you know, we're doing it the best
But
way,
ultimately,
especially for kids.
our principal
And,
tries to.
You know, so then I show data, and there's always a reason why.
So that was the website, and
so I
the
picked
teachers who are
pick
doing
districts
certain
with
things.
almost
Website,
identical
like,
demographic to us
a real thing.
in our
Yeah, no, it's
similar
full.
geographic area.
No, it's
And
okay.
look at their results compared to our results on whatever measure you
So
want to
he
use.
tries to,
all the different data
we'll
points
send
in.
him things we're doing.
There's always some excuse why.
Well,
This won't work for
and,
me. Well, I think.
but really, it's just.
The reason it won't work.
That coming from at-large, or is it coming from the small minority levels?
I teach in
now.
school with, it's an extremely veteran staff with traditionally
and
high performing students.
Teacher
We've
panel
done well.
sessions.
Mhm.
And
And I can make that division in my district.
Yeah.
There's also.
Yeah.
200 teachers in our school.
Yeah. I'm one of
And
the
then
only
26
guys,
kids.
yet I'm saying that we need to,
I'm very
we
familiar.
need to move forward. And see,
We
don't need to blow up. We don't need to
Where's your
blow
word?
up.
You know, like, how did you get there?
So
I went
through
to
the CFF, the,
Okay.
the tech, tech integration
They-
grant,
they-
yeah,
they-
you know, years ago.
I worked for the speech and debate
Previous
team.
governor, 2 governors, previous administration. And it was, I went to things like this.
Did you work with,
Those people said, wow, we're really, really traditional.
Probably
Work
more
for
than
us.
that, okay, yeah.
But
Um,
we're going
Year
to,
that they would-
I feel like we're going, and our students are going to be left behind unless we
West
try
Nile
some
virus
different
or
things.
something.
You said it's
Yeah. Meningitis,
important.
spinal meningitis.
Interacting with other.
We're also.
Yeah.
Interact with people
We're sort of
outside
ground
of
zero.
Right.
your bubble, and I think some of the things we can do is
Yeah,
we
they
have to
cleaned the
get
school,
people to actually
Yeah.
converse with
Yeah,
those
yeah,
that
fine.
outside
Well,
their
it's fine, but we
space.
need to get caught up in that echo chamber. And-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Our
Earth
actually,
yeah,
like,
it's the case for everyone.
Research.
Well, all 50 of you in this building, sure, not all 50, but a group.
So anyway, I,
So that's the issue.
yeah, I think.
It's really just
find a
those
way
that
to
are
show
loud,
up. It has to
influence
live in the
makers.
kids.
Right.
That's enough to sway
Yeah,
that
Everybody in
this
the
is
class
how
is like,
we
why don't you
feel,
do it
this
like
is,
this?
it's now universal.
exactly right.
Because people
And that's like, for us.
that are
we're
the
not-
ones that are kind of getting up to that, I guess.
We left our kids behind.
Those people are,
Yeah,
You see who's pretty,
you know, they want the best.
Right.
And or they're saying, you know what, this is a distraction. I've seen it
Right.
other places.
Mhm.
I don't want
Right.
to laptop, so I gotta tell you.
Absolutely.
And if you're not solid in your.
It's recognized.
Even if you are.
Yeah.
It presents a whole new challenges, like, so they're not entirely wrong.
It doesn't.
I wish my teachers would
Shift,
put that on top
we'll
of
say
it.
it's not because of them.
Yeah, there's some teachers that use it as.
Right.
So I
For
think
everything,
for everybody,
and it's like, why are you doing it this way?
that's what,
So how do you involve everybody in those discussions?
well, right now we
3
don't.
times a week.
What we're doing.
And I'm still typing out.
We're leaving right now.
Let's go.
I'm not,
Never
never
get that
claimed
to
to get
wrong.
wrong, but what I do claim is I need more conversation.
I'd say, well, with the retirement.
It's in New York City.
We're put in this year, we'll do next year.
At our school, it's very similar to this. Personally,
In my case,
it's only a 1 day thing.
By and large, it is.
It's easy for me to get.
It isn't always.
No,
It is.
Ninth is
No, it's not.
probably
I've
easy, but
done my
I've
situation.
It's that.
I've got some running
It's
things, definitely.
like the day when you wish you were a public school teacher.
That's why they got into it. That's why I did well, that's why I got into it.
Brian.
First of all, let's talk about that.
Why did we hire you in the first place? Because you're a football, how should you be dealing with football?
Right, Carol.
There
There used to be a Brian.
Hot. Oh, he's the name. Oh, he's the fire. I know his name. Oh, he did? Yeah. We both taught at Catholic. I taught in the village at St. Margaret's, Middle Village.
Yeah.
We were on the same
Long
time ago.
Yeah, he's been gone for, he left school maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now he's-
That's so important.
All right.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you guys.
So you're sorry.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ashley. Sorry.
No, thank you. Safe trip.
All right.
Yeah, but then I
Yeah,
have,
English
then I have
teacher,
the micromanagers. And that's when I go into neutral at work. Because I'm like, all right,
So-
you're gonna correct this anyway, so I'm
Yeah.
cool, I can conform.
Yeah.
And
change more stuff.
Oh, yeah, I for a long time was.
That's where grassroots,
Yeah.
and when you think about a revolution happens with a grassroots effort. And it starts gathering steam, and then it becomes irresistible. And so in order for this to even work in terms of the elements that are elements of revolution, it's got to start. A revolution can't be a top-down thing, although it's easier to work when you do that, but it usually is from the proletariat, from the people in the trenches. That's how revolution begins.
Yeah.
So, a couple of people who really do well was the Margaret Absolute or just that culture can make a huge difference and we get that ball rolling. So it takes some key players.
One of the things you don't change with
Like bringing in a social studies teacher.
There are
But
some
then
of the teachers who
the
showed resistance.
the success of this becomes too hard to resist.
Which again, I fully acknowledge is not perfect.
So,
It's not the
yeah,
sort of
that's-
solution.
I've seen it
right?
happen.
But yeah, and I
But it's
think
just this
the
extra tool,
revolutions that I created
and,
are
absolutely.
completely fine on these.
My colleague who's been
Yeah,
teaching
saying,
for 40
come
years,
follow
so our
me.
research
Let's
40
do it
years
again.
ago,
Yeah.
But
Sure, I got back up.
what you're taking
You
here is
have
it's not a
this,
complete
the
right,
smart board
You
in the
have
room,
to be in
and these are
mind.
things
So
that-
something
that were-
really
Yeah,
fails,
and
that's
these are tools that you now use
couch it as
regularly
protected, right?
in
You're
your
modeling
teaching
for
practice, right?
what
When
learning
they
by
enter
doing
into
looks like,
your
and how I
consciousness,
realize
whatever
and how I develop resilience.
you were resistant to
so
those things
you
too.
get that,
And what happens
you know,
over time,
And
you start
Oh, yeah,
and
it's part of the
comfortable with
culture
it,
of the
you
room.
start to
Right.
use
So
it a little
can
bit.
you guys just take a
and
couple
you
minutes to touch just a couple of ideas? There's some
master
really, really
it to the
important ones.
extent that
Failure
you were
rate is
able
huge.
to incorporate
I'm
it.
gonna talk about that
Or
one.
take over what you were doing
and
before.
So really good, so just take a couple seconds, jot a couple things down, and we're gonna
While we're
go back
looking
together.
for your thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys get a chance to jot. Let me try that in English. It's my first language and yet. Jot down a couple of ideas and we're gonna talk about it quickly, okay?
Anyone can get to the Google Doc, I'm on my iPhone, so.
Oh, slightly more challenging.
Yeah.
There were some really, really interesting ideas being shared, and then as it's coming up on the doc, one of the things
I'm seeing here was also in the discussions, is that the second piece, building the case and creating urgency, isn't generally the issue. It sometimes is, but frequently it's like, well, we know there is something there, but often people aren't in agreement on we need to do something about it, or that it is our issue to deal with, or these other pieces that we need to help them with. I also really like this, getting leadership on board is a model, not always necessary. Change is often a grassroots process. Yes. I will counter to that as someone who has done things with the idea of do it and then find out if you get in trouble, you deal with that later. Not recently, of course, Dr. Holbach. Is that if at some point you don't bring leadership on board with you, you could be some issues that then prevents other people from taking those risks. So that it's sort of the balancing act, possibly with that. And again, we're all dealing with different circumstances. Some things are going to be more true for your circumstance than others will be true for you. Okay? Also the failure piece, risk and failure. So I will tell you, this was a huge, huge piece for us. When I talked about the fact that some of the leadership was on board and were models and others were just saying, yeah, go for it. Sure, go ahead. Put some carts in our classrooms. Make our teacher go to PD. You do that. In the situations where the administrators, the site administrators, also came to the PD sessions and didn't just come and then hang out in the back and read email, but actually participated with their teachers, those teachers did well and felt comfortable taking risks and felt comfortable trying things because they knew their administrator was on board with, hey, sometimes this isn't going to work. Sometimes things are going to go wrong and it's going to be okay. We had a huge issue at some of our sites, primarily secondary, where teachers did not feel comfortable taking the risks, especially because we were doing it, building capacity and starting small. They were afraid to be different. They were afraid to make mistakes. They were afraid to move away from what we had always done, which had technically been successful. And something that's successful doesn't mean it doesn't need to change. But they were afraid to move away from that. And what they would say to me, these are grown adults, educated adults, who were saying, I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble. Which that just breaks your heart. You're afraid you're going to get in trouble. Now, in some cases, one side in particular, they were correct. They would have gotten in trouble for doing against what was the traditional way everyone always did everything. Thankfully, that administrator is gone. In other cases, it was a perception. And their administrator really was fine with all of it, but they were afraid to do anything different because they didn't have the trust. And you need to have that trust that everybody's on board. Okay, so going into the next piece of this. So once you've got that start happens, then you need to develop and communicate a vision and plan. And this is the part that always sounds really good on paper. This is what we're going to do, and this is why, and this is going to be fabulous, and here's our plan. But what does that really mean? Did we actually include everyone we talked about including before? Versus what happens sometimes is we have the discussions and include all the stakeholders. But when it really comes down to the vision and plan, what was moved ahead, what was already decided by those in power before they included all the stakeholders. That happens, and that's something we need to be really, really aware of. And then removing the obstacles and empowering action. For us, some of those obstacles were benchmark assessments. But I need to have taught all of these things, and you're telling me that the way you're telling me to change my teaching and change the learning process is going to take longer. And you've explained why this is a good thing, that actually my students are going to have a deeper understanding of the content and actually know it versus remembering it long enough for a test. I heard you say that, but I have benchmarks. Or I will do this after AP testing, because that is the be-all end-all. I can't do this. Well, I'm afraid, again, I will get in trouble if I am off the timeline. So is there some leeway? Can you remove those things that are in their way and empower them to take those risks and to do what they need to do? And doing that can be really, really difficult. It can feel like you are taking on a lot. Because it's one thing to say, yes, we should adjust, at least for those teachers, their timelines. That we should take into consideration that at the start of a process, it's not going to mean we have immediate, sudden, huge impact on student learning, that things take time. And you can say all this, but the problem is everyone's staring at you. No one's really helping you, and those that need to help you aren't making that happen. So how do we empower teachers, remove those obstacles, or for whoever it is, whether it's teachers, whether it's students, whoever it is that need to make this change, how are we empowering them and taking away those obstacles in a real and meaningful way that doesn't feel like a trap? Because again, some of our teachers felt like, well, I know my vice principal said that it was going to be okay, but I don't believe them. And they would say, I don't believe them. I had to bring in the assistant superintendent curriculum instruction more than once to come in and say, believe them, really, really, we are not going to hold this against you. But tradition is difficult to overcome. And then manage those doubts and concerns. Because there will be doubts and concerns that come up during the initial discussion process. And we had lots of them. And you deal with those and you get things rolling. Well, now you have new doubts and concerns. Because once it gets rolling into action, you start realizing what sounded good in discussions and what sounded good on paper, when you go to enact it, now we have new issues. We have things we didn't think about. We have things we didn't realize were going to be issues. How do you manage those doubts and concerns? We hired a third-party evaluator to take a look at how the program was working and what changes needed to be made. We knew that if we just said, look, here's the data, isn't it great? They'd say, yeah, but you put that data together. You have a vested interest in this. So we did pre and post surveys and looked at not test scores. We looked at what teachers understood and knew how to use and implement or didn't, and to what degree they knew how to use and implement or didn't. The inquiry-based learning as well as the technology. And for the post, we also did interviews. The third-party evaluator did interviews. And in those interviews, those face-to-face interviews, we were not allowed to be in the room. And I had to tell them ahead of time, please be honest. Those of you who, like me, my job is not on the line. Say what you need to say. Those of you that are mad at me, my job is not on the line. Sorry. Say what you need to say. And give them a chance to do that. And we did this evaluation with a third party with participants as well as non-participants. To really show, look, what is the impact this is having, if any, for teachers and students. So we did this with teachers and with students. And when we did this, my colleague at the time, Brian, and I said, well, fighting with us the whole time, talking about how this wasn't gonna work, or this was gonna be hard, or this is whatever. I mean, it's just, we would start every session with, you kind of had to build yourself up to deal with the fact that you were going to be beaten during that full day session. And so we waited for this evaluation, and we thought, okay, they're gonna say everything they need to say. I said, great. Then we looked at what the evaluations actually said. Were there doubts and concerns? Yes, there were. Was it like 100 times better than we thought it was going to come out? Yes, it was. But we took those doubts and concerns and communicated those. Because we needed to communicate those to administrators, to the superintendent, to the assistant sup, to the director, saying these are the doubts and concerns they have. These are what we need to address. And we let them know that, we let the teachers know this is what we are doing, this is how we're communicating it. And yes, we are communicating it. And no, it doesn't have your name on it. There are times when anonymous isn't necessary, there's times when it's very necessary. And in this case, it was very necessary. But we were very transparent with what we were doing with the information to help change those doubts, to adjust those doubts and concerns, or manage those doubts and concerns. What we can't do, or I don't think we can do, is treat it the way, you might have a locker room sign. We don't want to be losers, losers complain. Winners band together, we're gonna be a team, let's do this. It doesn't work in these kind of situations. If I say to you, no, you just need to get on board, be with us, you're gonna use some choice words to tell me where I can place it. It doesn't work. So how do we help support folks in there that manage those doubts and concerns that aren't condescending, that aren't, you should do it because you should, we're a team, we do this together, we want to be a community, we want to be a team, we want all those things. But this isn't how you manage it with grown adults. Actually, I would argue sometimes not how you manage it with kids either. Because what we're really asking them to do is go the opposite direction that they're used to, and go the opposite direction of their comfort, go the opposite direction of the majority of their colleagues. We were asking them to do a lot and to take on a lot. We need to recognize that and acknowledge that. So, part 2, we have the next section, which are developing the plan and vision and communicating that, removing the obstacles and empowering action, and managing those doubts and concerns. So, how do you do that realistically? We did it with the, we communicated the plan in various ways with various groups and checked doubts and concerns at that time. Removing the obstacles and empowering action, that was a process, and we're still in process of that. And how do you manage those doubts and concerns? What do you do? We did it with the listening to folks when they came to the PD sessions and beat us up. We did that with the survey and how we shared that. It was transparent with how we communicated that to others who could actually make those changes. What are other things we can do to address this, these 3 next parts? Putting the revolution in motion. So you'll have a little discussion table group, jot down a few ideas, and then we'll move on to step 3.
Everyone's like,
this is hard.
Yeah.
So for example, for the last semester, and I think that sometimes we don't go through too many cooks and make it
Kind of what?
and Because all it is because we
I'm talking about things
it's
about
too much.
how are
So, not much detail.
students, how are they communicating what's happening?
But even in just figuring out
Provide,
the disciplinary lesson between all the departments.
concrete examples
Just talk and talk.
of processes, of results, not just sort of assuage
Finally, so I'm giving it to
resistance in the form of doubt for certain the other
yeah,
side.
the motion practice.
Because what happens in my school is just a lot of talking. There's a lot of like, this is what you can
No,
do.
it's not, you know, you guys are.
You know, and then there's like fingerless. You know, exactly.
But, yeah, and it can be toxic as well.
Throwing words at each other.
Try this.
That's what I see. I want to see that. Removing obstacles. You're in my way.
Put aside part of it, the assigned part of it, I'm sorry, I was running administrators didn't want to take full risk, so we ran it parallel to what was called the stuff that it seems more comfortable using them.
So
But,
it's like this whole movement.
Celebrate,
But
like it was
we started with things shared. Next to the things, like it was more like we didn't need administrations.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's different.
You have a culture.
You can make a change overnight, you
So
can.
it's hard to get there, but we have time.
Yep, absolutely.
That's one thing I learned as a technical grader.
That thing, I think that, like,
As much as I
she was so
love
good
it,
at.
do something.
Just
Like,
like
there was no
together,
success,
and I was like, no.
like when the teachers
She
never
brings
was
a
that
personal obstacle
benefit
of
in what they can.
Right.
because it's something so simple, so we can talk about things that we want to do. But again, it's just talking, it's not really putting it
This or
into
that,
action.
relating to,
But we,
you know, or whatever.
I think it's about starting to,
A book that we read, a spot or whatever.
you're all right, and the two walking, we all writing books on tomorrow, or she could use it, and so we can get through by lunch, or security, and then by the end, it's like all the different disciplines walking out, or like, and having to.
Yeah, I know.
It's like really
So
itself.
for assignments and.
Which has been
and easy
I
exercise.
sometimes I need a venting
Our
place
first
that someone, I can see it's recorded,
Our
people saw it, listen to it.
Our first
Yeah.
think tank, and then I see was
Hustler.
curriculum applications.
And this isn't working.
So all of our things.
And she
that
just
were
sat there and
were
put them on the
things
board.
were steepest learning curves.
It was great because that's the other
The
thing.
obvious benefit wasn't, well,
These are
obvious.
sensitive
Wasn't
things that
immediate.
There wasn't an obvious.
Yeah,
let them help each other with, and
for me,
that's
in
where we
the
kind of
tech
started
integration
out.
role, the greatest success is when I get somebody who's
It's hard.
reluctant or flat out oppositional
I wanna
to try something and very small, and it goes really well.
Yeah.
Because then they will often be, first off, they're very proud. Hey, I tried this and it worked, so they're gonna tell people.
In general.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna tell
What if I
people,
do
and then,
wrong?
so that's my greatest
Let me just tell somebody
tool,
else.
is to, you know, somehow
But-
get that person, like, hey, let's try something here that's, you know, it's gonna be very small, you know, inside their comfort zone.
They're
You
probably
don't
not
have
there.
to try anything ridiculously.
Yeah, I think the word.
That's
But
so
then
that's a really
that
important
builds
piece, is
a lot
how many of them are
And,
real? And how many of,
that's
like,
some of my
you've confirmed
greatest
they're
inroads.
real
Absolutely.
versus it's a perception
Are
that it
oppositional but
exists, 'cause
willing
we had
to
both of
try.
those things happen.
And, you know, we still have those people who just won't even try. Like, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do it. And then I'm, you know, just, you know, on the last session, the presenter said, you know, in that case, we were very happy to just stay well.
See that sign.
Really
appreciate that.
And he said, and that's a difficult thing to say, but say, look, this is what we believe is best for kids, best for our climate in this building. And you don't agree with that, okay, we can't force you to agree with it. But we're not gonna continue to allow you to block
My advisor.
meaningful progress that the rest of us are making.
Yeah, and I think that really goes down to the ones who are reluctant in my experience.
She wants to know, tell me about your kid, really too much going on.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the room,
No, it's still like
not
that.
in the.
That's a level of safety though that
Being in the room.
Yeah.
they
You
have.
know,
Yeah.
just saying,
Absolutely,
"Hey,
and I
can
know,
help
and I'm
you
like, I don't know why I
And-
didn't know that. I'd be like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yes.
Yeah,
we do that.
What do you want to try? What do you want to build? What do you think you want
It's
to do?
just
Yeah,
like,
just
Yeah.
while the kids are in there, I just.
okay,
sit.
good.
Yeah.
And I'll
I'll do that, like
sit,
making
and
that
then
step,
what
'cause
the
they're-
kids are
they're
doing,
great.
I'll do with them,
Yeah.
and, you know, I'll, because then they're, oh, well, why didn't you
Um,
come back? And
Like, it was one of the months where
say
we didn't really have a
something,
break.
what do you think I could
Then
do?
we're like,
And then
you
it's
guys,
a
we're gonna do
slow.
a mindfulness day, so we all got to choose our things, and actually yoga and coloring. And all of the teachers, like different teachers put stuff on, like they presented. And I did do it, and I followed for an hour. Like, they taught us after that, like breathing exercises. Running, like it was cool. So for that entire morning, we did those things, I'm like, that is, like, they're going in the right direction with it, like, they're making us feel like we have the power to do.
Oh, so we can take just a couple minutes and jot down a couple ideas.
But it's just like,
I feel like I go the other way.
So maybe you just talked about this one.
Obstacles are-
What about when school?
They are.
they're there, yeah, they're definitely still there.
And I have issues
Use that
with
ideas.
because I'm not sure you ever really remember to, maybe you shift them, they take on a different form, but there has
them.
Yeah.
We would the opposite.
There's always going to be like hacks or fire.
It's
They're
all
more
made
so effective.
Yeah.
Effective.
But do you ever
Or
think,
delusional.
I mean, part of the problem is people are allowed to be.
But it's using obstacles to art unpack and to realize that take their two changes, take their component to the obstacle and build on them and to learn and preparation and sort of to create new things. I use
Some slight modifications.
Think
to
tank.
curriculum.
Right.
And they went from 43rd when we were 44th
I think it's really good here.
to first.
To do those first few steps.
It becomes pretty obvious that that whole teacher piece,
There's some obstacle that is always there.
it's more difficult to get into teacher school than out of school.
Fear of job or fear of
Absolutely.
judgment or fear of failure.
Three more years.
When they don't stay. If
I mean,
I know you, I know
we're
that.
not unique, we're year to year, we don't
I'm
stop.
going 3 more years and he's like, I'm like,
Year to year.
Judgment though is a piece of one too.
Judgment is huge.
college
My
courses
colleague next
that
door.
you can engage in.
They're judging what I'm doing,
It's
and the parents are judging what I'm
least
doing.
rigorous.
The kids are judging what I'm doing. It's different than what the kids next door are doing, it's.
But I was talking about yesterday, I got a piece of it.
Absolutely.
I'm very concerned, I mean, I've said it for years too about teacher prep programs, I did alternative.
They can also push.
Right, so I was a teacher guide, and I worked for years as a teacher through graduate school. Nothing I did inside of this relevant.
Absolutely.
2 weeks ago, I had a student from Temple in my classroom for a series of weeks, and she did, a short mini lesson.
So this is a really good question. Is revolution a strategic plan?
And I was talking on feedback, and she was like, you in 6 weeks.
Are they the same thing?
Because I told you about that. Like, we tell you everything they're doing.
Is,
When they-
are you always developing a strategic plan in order to have a revolution? And is that always the purpose of creating a strategic plan? No. Can you have, and when we say revolution, any significant change? Any significant change. Can you have significant change without having a strategic plan of some form? When I say some form,
Yes, you can,
you can.
but it might be accidental and you might not like it.
True, true. And does it, how formal does it have to be? Does it really have to be a strategic plan that is board approved and goes through all these processes? No, not for everything. But you still need a plan of some kind to make this happen, to me. I mean, that's a personal thing. Building relationships. Oh my gosh, this is so big. Okay, so don't be afraid to leave behind those that refuse to get with the program.
Which sounds awful.
No, it totally doesn't.
But it's seriously, my first time, just a little back, I'm not trying to hijack, but
No,
my first time through
hijack.
first time through my tech integrator gig, I allowed people who were oppositional to basically derail our entire program. And this time around, I've said, well, this is what I've been asked to do, and I believe in it, and there are others of us who believe in it, so I can't force you to get on board, but, you know, this is the way we're going.
So there's a difference in doing that, at what point you do that. So
Right.
do you do that before or after you've made some attempt to hear and address the doubts and concerns?
One of my colleagues once said, water the flowers first, the rocks won't grow. And that stuck with me. You get much more satisfaction when you see those flowers blossom.
Yeah, and it comes to a certain point where there are certain people, and we can all fill in the names, right, of who those folks are in our situations, who no matter what you do, and you make every attempt, no matter what you do, they're going to say, yeah. At some point, you have to move on because you have this set that is ready to go. And to me, as long as you have made honest, truly honest, transparent attempts at managing those doubts and concerns, you've got to roll, because remember the intention of whatever this was, what was the intention and urgency for whatever this was? We can't take another 3 years discussing it because 2 people are being cranky, just because they're loud or they are influential in whatever way. It has to happen, and we go back to that again, that urgency. What was this about? Who was it for? This is interesting. Okay, so can obstacles ever be removed? Should they be, or are they only unpacked, explored, learned from, built upon, and then reshaped? So I would ask, is that different than managing or removing? Because we had a conversation over here about sometimes those issues are real, like you've confirmed they're real, and sometimes they're perceived. And maybe this process of unpacking and exploring and building upon and reshaping is really realizing, you know what, that really wasn't a big deal. That wasn't a real issue. It was something we were afraid was going to be an issue. And I think this whole process is an important part of doing this. I think that's awesome. Okay, so, and these all kind of blur a bit too when we're talking, especially these last two, removing the obstacles and empowering action and managing doubts and concerns. The things we do for that tend to blur. Okay, so then we get to celebrating successes along the way. And because, as we said, these things don't happen overnight. You know, Joyce brought up a really great point that you don't change a culture overnight. You can make change quickly. You can't make sustained change quickly. Sustained, meaningful change quickly. It doesn't happen. So it takes time, and we all want things to happen now. Especially when a lot of these changes require us to put in a lot of time and energy, and a lot of emotional energy often, in doing whatever we need to do for this change. And you start to feel like, but is it doing any good? I'm taking these risks, I'm failing and learning from them, I'm doing all of these things, is it worth it? And so we need to celebrate along the way. What we did, so we took that survey data that we had, the interview information, and created a document as well as a brief video. And shared, here's what we did, just a reminder, here's a review of the program and what it was all about. Here's what worked really, really well, which were things that we were really surprised, they worked really, really well. And some of them were things we had intended to do, and some of them were things we hadn't intended to do, but they worked really well, so that's awesome. Impacts that we had, for example, we had, one of the results was a really significant difference between participants and non-participants in the amount, in how students felt about whether their learning involved more than one disciplinary area. We hadn't worked with teachers on doing interdisciplinary units. We hadn't discussed that, and yet it was happening. It was becoming a natural part of the process. We took all of the things that were positive and said, look, here's actually what happened, and here's the data. Real numbers, Real graphs, here's the data, here's what it looks like. And the comparisons. We also did, and here's what didn't work so well, and here were the concerns, here are the things we need to address. And we shared that. We shared that with the participants, we shared that with administrators, we shared that with the board, we shared that with everybody we could share it with. Say, look, this is what's happening after year one. And then we do that each year because we have to keep talking about those things along the way. It's also what we share with teachers when they first start with us at the beginning of the year with a new cohort, 2-year program. And we say, look, just so you know, here's what we already know about it. Because they're nervous, they've signed up, what have I signed up for? It's one thing to go, yeah, I want to do that. And then you show up and go, oh, what have I done? What have I committed myself to? And so we talk about that. Here are the successes, as well as some of the things we know we need to do. And then there's great change, but you have to make it a part of the culture, and you have to help people become competent in the change. It's one thing to work with a group of teachers and say, okay, great, you're ready to go. And then I'm gonna work with the next group. But what happens to that first group you work with that are now off on their own? How are they still being supported? How are we continuing to build upon this process? One of the things we did is brought on some additional, so let me start back with in 2011, there was me. I was the one teacher on special assignment for the district. Most of what I did actually had nothing to do with this program. And then there were 2. Now, 5 years later, since year 5, I and another colleague are coordinators, and we have 5 TOSA positions. Because we demonstrated that we need to be able to support teachers ongoing. We need to build that competency in this change. We also, one of the you're with us or you're not deals, is that if you receive a carded device, if the district purchased the carded device is being rolled into your classroom, in order for you to be the person who is in charge of this carded devices and for it to be in your room, you spend 2 years with me. Hey, welcome. If you don't want to do that, guess what we're going to do? Take the card and roll it to somebody else who's willing to be a part of this. Is that it has to become part of the culture that you want to do this. And as I said, year 1, fought us like crazy. Why won't you just give me the bright, shiny tools? Give them to me. Now, and I had administrators arguing with me about it. Why do my teachers have to do this? Why won't you just give them the bright, shiny tools? Now, I regularly have teachers and administrators saying, ooh, 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 ooh. I'll do it. They're seeing the changes happening. They're seeing the support they're getting and the difference it makes for students, and they're asking to be involved. But that's 5 long years. And in the whole scheme of things, we're probably like this far. And so you have to be really realistic about where you are in the process too. But if you have to continue to build in pieces that make this part of what's expected, make this part of, this is just how we do business. And I use that phrase a lot when I'm speaking with leadership, speaking with the board, is saying, it's one thing for us to make these changes, and integrating technology is a deeper part of our learning process. And it's cool and all that, but it has to stop being cool and all that and just become part of how we do business. It has to become norm, not interesting. And that, it's going to continue to take time. Part of that also is you can't decide, this was a great thing and really important, we have to do this. And then, hey, you know what? It's been 2 years. We're going to do this other thing instead. Because that has happened. Think of how many times that has happened with whatever initiative you want. And teachers are really, really wary of it. Why would I invest my time and my emotional energy in making whatever this change is, when I know that in a year or 2 years or 5 years, you're gonna turn right back around and ask me to do something else instead. You're gonna go with wherever the wind's blowing, whatever the new thing is, the cool thing is. And they're right. It has happened many, many times. And it was one of the doubts and concerns we had from teachers. Not only, the whole trust and failure thing and all that, but am I gonna do this and it's going to end? And we're having to continually prove, no, this is something we'll keep building upon. And this is how it fits into this other area. And this is how things fit together. And showing folks how it fits and how it's not a one-off. It's not an and, because none of us have any room in our days for another and. We have to show, how does this actually become a part of my business, a part of how we do things, and fits in with all the other pieces I need to do. And that's something that we are building. So now we're doing even more work with our, we have a program called, we use a program called GLAD, Guided Language Acquisition and Design, which is very paper, pencil, chart, marker based. Awesome. How do we incorporate more of the inquiry ideas that we're doing into what is already happening in Project GLAD? How do we include more of the technology integration into what is already happening in Project GLAD? How do we do this with our other models and programs? And we're working with the various groups, our science grant, the SEC grant, our Mathtosis, all these folks, and trying to bring folks together for, let's make this a more cohesive piece and part of just how we do business. So, we get to part 3. How do we sustain the revolution? How do we make it practical and real? The last part of the document has just 2 sections. What are some practical things that you can do to celebrate the successes along the way and making that change and competency in the change just part of how you do business? Okay, so that's your last discussion. How do we do those last 2 pieces? And the answer I usually use of magic doesn't really work. I know, right? Dang it!
So if you really just celebrating success by highlighting things are not or integrating it in a way that you're still simpling it out as a job. So celebration that you all your teachers make. Yeah. If it's going to be stuff that's in water, if it's just more go to the north, so then you can't have like an educator of the month award of the school, because then it's not everybody in the district. Right. The ones that aren't particularly the ones that
So what you, so I'm gonna tell you what you're saying, like, so, and I don't have the last part of it, so I'll say it goes on.
Well, I was just saying, because if celebration of success means singling out something, then it's not, because we were saying, just integrating, making it part of the norm. So the celebration has to be more subtle. So I'm not sure how to.
So would something like Mike is describing what
Innovative things.
leadership has one of their tasks is to really like catch people doing it well. It is. And then just tweeting it out.
I think that's right too, because it also
Or
gives me
something a little
different
more,
as teachers talk to
and
me,
it-
like, I
doing
don't
it
have time to, I don't have time
so that you're
to
singling it
do
out, but
research
not in
and
such a
STEM,
Yeah.
you don't have to go into the classroom,
way.
you have to give up your craft, whatever.
and making it enough to kind of get around to folks.
I saw something.
Because I know sometimes you've got someone
I
who,
don't know where they just, they do pineapple.
they're struggling. It's like the kids, right? And you're like, and there's times you need to catch that. Okay.
The door and,
When you really want
bye, people just walk in, because you're
One
excited,
day.
because you've already
Um, you love them, but
Never happened.
no.
renting a school.
They like come
Yeah.
Mom
But-
and dad like come to school.
You catch them when they've done something. It's like, yes,
Exactly.
and celebrating that. So if we get around to doing that, does that help the situation so that we're not doing it? Because what you're saying is, you're right, you can't go, because then it becomes, well, now you're making us look bad. And you get all those kind of jealousy and antagonistic things. Is there a way to do that? It's letting more subtle.
We We tried a disastrous program. This last year, the year before. But
So we just connecting the two ideas you talked about, you know, catching people in the act of,
it was given
Yeah.
to a faculty
Right.
member.
and then sometimes you have to, for those people who are really struggling, it's kind of like the sparring class that you don't
Quite often. It might have been monthly, I don't remember. I wasn't a part of it because
you know, and
I
celebrating
remember
that,
meeting, I thought it was the
and
most
then maybe the
ridiculous thing.
folks are like, wait, they can do it.
Yeah, I think
Alicia,
it's
who
cool
was
too,
our art
because
director at the time.
like every once in a while you walk in.
But it was like, whoever won the award, and I think we got one out.
I was just going by,
Everyone
because I was
just
there.
chalks on the house, and it's like, but it was like,
You
I'm sure,
So
it
you
was
go
supposed to
in
be
and
kind of
just-
ironic, we're supposed to be laughing at each other, laughing at ourselves a little bit, but like,
This is awesome.
they had like an image
I put this
of
on Twitter.
Iron Man, but
She wasn't on Twitter.
superimposed the
Kids
face
said,
of
"Oh,
the
we
teacher
want to see."
onto Iron Man, and like in Iron Man's
They're
ear,
on
it's like an
Twitter.
iPad. It was
As the teacher.
So,
Yeah, that kind of.
then you get that notification that your contact so-and-so is on Twitter for the first time.
Great, I think, point
It's,
without this
that
like
whole system.
and just saying, hey, maybe without your it's just that, just
Start with a little.
showing the work that you did allows other teachers to appreciate it, to be like, wow.
And we were saying that there's a difference
They
between
did it,
that
and
and going,
And all types of.
look,
Right,
everybody,
not just super.
Yeah.
here's the stuff.
Like at a
But all
faculty
types of-
meeting or
Yeah.
something, it's
Exactly.
like
Which causes.
the person gets red and
The
it's
worst
like.
thing you feel like.
Because you know what
Yeah,
the kids think that.
Exactly, you're about to get stuff next year.
It's not all me, but it's not all the teachers, the kids.
You know, just like thinking about this, you know, we talked so much about engagement
know,
and social
you know, they know when
an
kids
authentic
do
audience versus teachers in their
We
right
don't have
view, right? This is why you bring the people for people. Right,
Right.
and so now it's creating an authentic audience of teachers. The
But, like,
passion's not about the four walls, it's about
seeing
getting the kids outside of the four walls so they can participate
She's doing
in all the
It's good to see kids.
Yeah, for sure. Did you put it for us?
I'm not there.
Yeah,
Like that's what, it's
No,
nice
no,
to see
you
that
know,
they're
I might have some love, it's
showing what.
so to get out to find out which one they end up.
Yeah, I guess that.
Which, it hasn't, next week. Awesome, okay, next week. I don't know. I'll look at the dates and
And
put it
then,
aside.
because that's the end.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so what are some of the ways we can celebrate change along the way? We talked about, you know, doing this in subtle ways, because pointing out the, look, everybody. If you're that person, feel like you're a total narcissist. You're that person that's not really what you want, and everybody else, you're just bitter. That doesn't work. We need to celebrate those, and then supporting along the way. So I just challenge you to think about what your next steps are. How do you realistically make this happen? Whatever that change is, whether it's in your classroom, your site, your district, whatever, what are those next changes? Think about realistically what can you do? And taking one step at a time. And getting others in on your game so that it's not quite so daunting. So for example, Chrissy was talking about doing something, and I said, look, email me, let me help you. Throw things out there to other people and help you think about some of the process, because sometimes we want to make these changes and you feel kind of like a lone wolf out there fighting your head against the wall. Get other people involved. We can do this. We just have to be realistic about those steps and not get so overwhelmed by, but these are the big ideas and those seem too big. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your time in EdTech.
Thank you.